When I was first working in the business, I had a mentor who was a filmmaker, and he said, you have to learn how to use your leftovers. And I didn't know what he meant. And I learned what he meant, so I'm going to tell you what he meant, because it's a really interesting concept. And we'll break it down for actors, for writers, and for directors. So we'll start with the actors. For actors, let's say you're using a headshot and you've been using it for a while. It started not pulling as much. You're not getting as many responses from it, or you've recently found out a little bit more about branding and you look at the headshot and you think really isn't as well branded for me as I thought it was when I first selected it out of my selects of that headshot session. You know, you don't necessarily have to go shoot brand new headshots. If the headshot session was recent, within the last couple of years, and you haven't completely changed your look, for instance, if you're a guy, you still have the same hair. Guys don't change their hair that often, but they grow beards or they shave beards. They go bald or they shave their heads. Women change their hair more than men do and change their look more than men do. But if you haven't gained or lost 50 pounds or didn't have really long hair and now it's short, or really short hair and now it's long, but you basically look the same, you can probably go back to that session and find a better branded headshot within that session without reshooting. That's using your leftovers. That means you can find something within that session that works. Because I bet you shot a lot of stuff, and I bet there was more than one that was really good. And maybe you selected one where you looked kind of handsome or pretty, and maybe it wasn't really the one that sells you the best. Maybe you didn't have as much experience when you selected that headshot, and now you have a little more experience in the business, and you know, hey, I don't want to pick the headshot that is the pretty one. I want to pick the headshot that is the one that's going to sell what I do. I bet you can go back and find that headshot within that session instead of shooting a new headshot session. That's using your leftovers as an actor. Try it. See if I'm not right. Hey, if you have to, you have to, but you know, go there first. Go back. Probably have several hundred shots. Go back and look and see if you can't use those leftovers. Now, as a writer, I do this all the time. I mean, all the time. It was interesting. I don't know how many writers I have who are here, but I subscribe to Steven Pressfield's blog. And if you're a writer and you're not reading Steven Pressfield's blog, you should be reading Steven Pressfield's blog, because it's really good. Great information, very inspirational. And he was writing about the various things that he has open on his laptop when he's writing. And one of those files that he has open is something he calls culls, C-U-L-L-S, culls. It's a little bit different for him because he's writing a novel. But I do a very similar thing when I'm working on a screenplay. When I'm editing a screenplay. Not when I'm writing, but when I'm editing a screenplay. And that is, every time I go back, I save as, and then the date. Why? Why do I do that? It means I'm going to have lots and lots of saved as on my laptop, on my hard drive. It does. It means I'm going to have a lot of versions of that screenplay in a folder. But it makes me really free to cut anything and everything. Because I know that I have a previous version where that is still there. So I've cut with wild abandon. And I can cut, and I know I can always go back. Steven Pressfield says he cuts everything and puts it in his culls folder, and that way he knows that he can cut with abandon, just like I do, and that way he feels free to cut, and he knows he can always go back and rescue those things later. I know I can always go back and rescue those things later. They are what I call the leftovers. I also know that I can use elements of that script for other scripts if I like it. So I know that if I had a really good character or a really interesting scene or sequence in a screenplay and I cut the whole thing out and it's gone in my latest version, but I really liked it. I really, really liked that character. I really, really liked that sequence. And I think to myself, as I'm writing another screenplay or editing another screenplay, gosh, you know, I could really use that or modify that sequence and use it here with these characters. I can always go grab it from a previous version of that screenplay because it's there. It's using your leftovers. Now, how do I do this as a filmmaker, as a director? Well, you do it when you're editing. First of all, I pre-do it by, I always allow the camera to roll a little bit before I say action, and I always allow the camera to roll a little bit before I say cut. So I've got a little bit of pre-roll and I've got a little bit of post-roll on every scene. And then I've got extra footage that I can use anywhere in the movie. But I have used musical cues that were intended for one scene and I've put them in other scenes. I've been given cues by the composer, this is for this scene, this is for this scene, and they write them specifically for individual scenes, and it's like, yeah, I think I'm going to have this scene without music. But then I take the music and I think, you know what? I like this musical cue though. I think I'll repurpose it somewhere else. That's using your leftovers. That's taking that musical cue and putting it somewhere else. That's taking a reaction shot. That's taking a static shot, an establishing shot, a cutaway, an insert shot, and using it somewhere else. You always want to make sure wherever you are as a filmmaker, you get your establishing shots, your inserts, and your cutaways. Because even if you don't use them in that scene, you never know where you might use them. They may be considered leftovers for that scene, but you might use them somewhere else. So that is what my mentor taught me to do. You have stuff that you intend to be used in a particular sequence, a particular scene, a particular moment of your film. And then when you get there in the editing room, you may or may not use it, but you have it. And it can be used somewhere else in the movie, or you just may not use it at all. Okay, but you have it in case. And if you use it somewhere else, it's like using your leftovers. Well, it was left over from that scene, but we're going to use it over here. So I call that using your leftovers. And in fact, I have used things that were intended for one movie in a different movie. I have. Musical cues, special effects shots. I have taken pieces that were intended for one movie and gone, you know what? That will work. It will work. Musical cue didn't work for this movie, but it will work in that one. And I've used it. That's using your leftovers. It's yours. You have it. You paid for it. Why not? Obviously, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, use it. It's called using your leftovers. There's no reason not to.